Alien Storm is a 1990 beat-em-up shooter arcade game by Sega, released on its Sega System 18 hardware. The game resembles Golden Axe, with a similar artistic style. 3 playable characters, Gordon, Carla and Scooter, and pick up or power up special attacks. The player selects from the 3 different characters to embark upon a quest to save the Earth from an alien invasion. The arcade version of this game allowed for 3 players simultaneous play, whereas home ports would only accommodate a maximum of 2 players. All of the busters are playable from the beginning of the game. There are 6 missions to complete, each with several stages, and each mission has the player blasting aliens from the streets to the mothership, where the mother of all aliens can be found. This task becomes increasingly difficult with each new mission, and the aliens are capable of hiding inside objects such as plants, post boxes, trash cans, drums and other items. Each mission has an objective such as rescuing people or destroying a UFO. After defeating certain aliens, flying skulls will appear which can be shot to collect life or energy. Energy is used specifically to power the energy-based attacks of the player's weapon, such as flames or electricity, and to use the much more powerful special weapons. There are few bosses in the game. The arcade original features an alien spaceship, an alien brain, and a single boss in the middle of the game that has 3 distinct forms. This boss is repeated as a common enemy near the end of the last mission. At the end of each mission, the side-scrolling gameplay shifts to either a shooting gallery perspective where the player must take out the aliens that pop out of various locations, similar to the bonus stages of other Sega games, such as Shinobi and Shadow Dancer, or a running section that is similar to the side-scrolling mode, but plays like a horizontal shooter instead with projectile weapons. Gameplay wise, it's very similar to Golden Axe, albeit at a much faster pace. The Lagoon Leisure Centre in Paisley had a 3-player version of this in their cafe, and me and my mates would always have a go in this after leaving the swimming. The 3-player game was very frantic, and while the game itself was nothing really special in single player mode, it was a real hoot in 3-player. When the action moves to the in-store scenes, the sense of carnage that you and your mates create when gunning down the aliens and everything else always put me in mind of that scene in Ghostbusters, when Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis were trying to catch Slimer in a restaurant. Everything got destroyed in pursuit of the target. The sprite scaling in this section is awesome. Sega had become famous for producing some really great sprite scaling games in the 80s on their super scaler hardware, and you can see from Alien Storm that their System 18 hardware was more than capable of producing similar results. The sound effects in this section as you tear the store apart is great. You can hear everything fly apart, as well as hearing the cans hit the floor with this excellent hollow ting effect. The game had this whole not too serious vibe about it. From the silly little cutscenes at the start of levels, to the alien busters themselves selling alien burgers just to make a few extra bucks. Sega were always great at this, making games that had this light-hearted approach to the amount of impending violence that would almost certainly follow. It wasn't a very long game. With only 6 levels, it could be completed in about 20 minutes or so, but it was an enjoyable game to play, and I knew I had to buy it for the Megadrive when it came out. I had pre-ordered this game on Japanese import without playing or reading a review. I had seen full-size screenshots of it in magazines, so I knew it wasn't going to be another case of Moonwalker or eSWAT. The game must have been popular, as even trying to secure a pre-order was tricky enough. Lots of places would tell me I might have to wait a while for it, but I could get a copy of Bare Knuckle straight away. I hadn't even heard of Bare Knuckle. It received almost no mention or coverage in magazines at this point, which was round about July 1991. If only I had taken these importers up on that offer. Well, you live and learn, I suppose. Anyway, the day Alien Storm arrived for me, I remember seeing the postie delivering it just as I was finishing up delivering my papers, and about 2 minutes later it was in my Megadrive being played, and 20 minutes later it was complete. Yep, that's right. Alien Storm on a Megadrive was far too easy a game. That aside, it was slightly different from the arcade version. Some of the levels were different. In fact, there were more levels on the Megadrive than in the arcade. But the game just lacked any real kind of challenge, which was a real shame. Sega had managed to create visuals on the Megadrive that were on a par with those of the arcade, apart from the sprite scaling obviously. The sound too was worthy of a mention, but all of this was pointless, as the game offered no challenge. You're not going to keep coming back to a game that offers no challenge. Later on that morning, I went round to a mate's house with it, and we played it there, and completed it on the hardest setting and without using a continue. I was so gutted, as I had high hopes for this game, but Sega had really dropped the ball on this one. The real disappointment here is that so much effort had been put into the game in terms of visuals and sounds, and even increasing the levels, but they forgot to include any kind of challenge. After a few days, it was already consigned to the trade-in pile, and not long after that, it was gone. It may even have been the shortest amount of time I ever owned a game for. My thoughts on Alien Storm on the Megadrive was that it was a great conversion of the arcade, just way too easy, and failed to provide any real value for money. But there is another story to Alien Storm on the Megadrive. You see, Alien Storm was not just another horizontally scrolling game. More specifically, it was a horizontally scrolling game that Atari claimed was an infringement of one of their patents. A long time ago, in 1977, Atari released a video game called Superbug. This was like most other video games of the era, very simple. But Atari had developed a way of scrolling the screen in such a way that used less memory. But this wasn't patented until October 1980. The patent application entitled, and I quote, "Apparatus for Scrolling a Video Display," was filed by inventor David R. Steuben. The patented invention allowed for fine horizontal scrolling of the video display with minimal interruption of access to the memory. It achieved this by imposing a delay in the transmission of the graphics data, which had already been read out from the memory to the display. The delay means, in the docket 114 patent, is clearly shown as a circuit which receives the serial output data from parallel to serial converter connected to the output of the symbol ROM, which then converts the serial data back to parallel data in a serial to parallel converter, and then selects one of the taps of the serial to parallel converter via a multiplexer, and provides the data on the selected tap as output data. It can thus be seen that the claimed delay means is positioned between the output of the ROM and the display means and operates upon the data to selectively delay the data from the memory. The examiner's proposed delay means in the superbug system is not positioned between the ROM and the display, nor does it operate upon the data. Rather, the examiner's proposed delay means is positioned before the memory circuits and operates to offset the addresses to the memory circuits. In short, the examiner has ignored the location of the delay means, which is clearly defined in the claims. Now, this patent was not relating to Superbug, but it did contain Superbug schematics as reference material. With this patent, Atari tried to lay claim that games that had horizontally scrolling were in some way infringing on intellectual property, and as such, each video game manufacturer that used this technology owed Atari a royalty. Atari had already tried this action with Nintendo in 1989, but by 1992, a cash-strapped Atari decided to take Nintendo's offer of a license of the tech. With this small victory in the bag, Atari decided to go after Sega next. Atari's argument was that in the early 90s, Sega and Nintendo had the home video game market pretty much split between them, and due to this superior market share, they could not get shelf space in stores for any of their hardware. So in 1993, Atari took Sega to court over the scrolling tech used in a whole bunch of Sega games, one of which was Alien Storm. In October 1993, Atari Corporation filed a lawsuit against Sega of America, alleging infringement of a 1984 patent involving horizontal scrolling on a video display. The Trammell family company sought a preliminary injunction that would have halted the manufacture, use, and sale of Genesis and Game Gear hardware and software. The court found that the harm caused to Sega, retailers, developers, and peripheral manufacturers by this injunction would have likely outweighed whatever harm had been done to Atari, so the motion was denied. Nevertheless, a settlement was reached in September 1994 between both parties. Sega would acquire $40 million worth of stock in Atari, and would also pay Atari $50 million for a license to use over 70 patents issued between 1977 and 1984. The companies agreed to cross-license up to 5 games per year through to 2001. They also agreed to drop all claims against each other. The cross-licensed games never appeared, and within a few years, Atari had all but pulled out of the video game market they had created in the 1970s. Who would have thought a simple video game would be the cause of so much angst for one game developer? Anyway, back to the original game. So the question is, do I go back and play this game? Well, the answer to that is no, not really. It was a fun game at the time, but even playing it back now for this video, it just seems slightly boring and tedious, which is odd, as it's basically Golden Axe, but I still enjoy playing Golden Axe, but not Alien Storm. In closing, Alien Storm was a fun game of its time, but it is a game of its time, and in my opinion, it didn't stand out enough to ever become a true classic. By all means, give it a go for yourself, but I guarantee you, it won't be a game you come back to time and time again. And that's all from me, folks. If you like this video, then please feel free to like, comment and subscribe. Thanks for watching.